Hello, welcome back to the Europe is Coming podcast. My name's Adam Giles, the host of the podcast, and I'm joined by John Singleton as ever. How are you, John?
I'm good. I'm exciting. We're building our streak, a podcast streak.
I know. I feel like we need like an Xbox achievement to pop up on the screen. Like I don't know if we can animate that in somehow. I don't quite have
really
those
like
skills.
Gamify this the project.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, myself and John are back this week. If you weren't aware, I should plug this. We actually go live on YouTube on the training the program's training YouTube channel, which I will put in the description. So if you want to join us live and sort of share comments and stuff as we're recording, then please do. It is at 6 p.m. UK time, 7 p.m. Sort of Spanish time on the YouTube feed. And again, the link will be in the description. So if you want to come and join us live, we thought we record video. So I kind of said to John, should we just put the videos out? And John reluctantly agreed. So we now do this actually live. And then if you do like to listen to it, though, on your audio feed as you're training or as you're commuting to work or wherever you listen to your podcasts, it will be on all the usual streams that you'll probably listen to us on now if you're not on the live. But how's your week been, John? What's been going on?
It's been a good week. We had some friends around. We're kind of doing up property at the moment, and there's like an amazing amount of work. So we managed to get a group of friends on the island together yesterday, and there are like 8 of us just moving stones for a long period.
Excellent.
So I was pretty destroyed. Like it really, my back was sore this morning.
Yeah, it's when you kind of get into those projects that you kind of thankful for all of the fitnessing activities, but slightly less sort of prescribed in the fact that, you know, a power clean is always a power clean, but when you're having to like move a rock or bits of furniture, it's slightly more awkward. And I swear I know a lot of people that are also in the renovation era at the moment, either buying houses or what have you, and doing things up. It seems to be a lot of decorating in my social groups these days.
It goes through phases now. You go through like the marriage, the kids, the age thing keeps coming.
It does. It very much does. It very much does. And what about on the CrossFit functional fitness side of things? Has there been much on your mind of late, or anything that you've kind of noticed this week?
Oh, I mean, I think it's been like relatively quiet. You know, a big thing from my side we saw the kind of 4 guys, you know, and rightly so. Like you've got Justin Medeiros, James Sprague, Dallin Pepper, and Jason Hopper. They formed this Boys Interrupted podcast. And honestly, you know, I think they're just doing a great job in promoting their own brand and getting these experiences. But, you know, it also helps that like 3 of the 4 of them have been fittest on earth, and the other one is close to that. And I think it's been quite clever of them because, like, typically on social as well, things aren't as popular as they used to be, in the sense, you know, like Fraser has 1 million followers, Sarah Sigmund's daughter 1 million, Annie, etc. The kind of older OGs have such big followings and such big presence just by themselves. Whereas now it's just not that as easy to get that level of traction within the sport. And so I think those guys forming up and kind of creating this shared hype between them is really good. And, you know, going out to the ranch, it must have been a super fun experience for them to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. I hadn't actually checked out the content yet. You mentioned it, but really cool. And I think especially we've talked about it a bit before, that there's a lot of new people to the sport, and especially younger generations getting into functional fitness. And for myself and you know, kind of the ranch was a big part of the history of it, and featured quite a lot in the early days. I think we talked about like Every Second Counts, a documentary, and Miko Salo stuff, and I think we referenced it on the last episode, some of Seven's work, and just how much the ranch kind of showed up in those documentaries, and then the subsequent games it kind of filtered in. But recently, it's the history of CrossFit sort of not as prominent. So for them to go and present that to their fans and new audiences potentially, I think it's really cool as well.
Yeah, I agree. It's an interesting one, that like balance between moving forward and paying homage to where it came from.
Yeah, absolutely. Was there any interesting takeaways that you noticed from the content?
Not particularly. I mean, it was pretty like cool, like the CrossFit that I used to like. Just run up a hill with a sandbag or do some burpees over a rail, and have these kind of 4 people working out in one place. So it's like one person has to run a longer distance to the rings or whatever it may be. It's just, it's just kind of like fun throwing down.
Yeah, I felt a bit of nostalgic, sort of some classic CrossFit vibes.
Yeah,
Less super heavy weights.
and I think that they're doing a very good job in like re-promoting things. It kind of feels like more how it used to be. I think there's still lots of discussions about what's the how do you take the sport to the next level, and et cetera, et cetera. However, the media they're doing certainly been upped compared to the last few years.
Yeah, and it's cool that they're sort of athletes seem to be taking it on themselves more to kind of like get their videographers create their own content, not reliant on just being like, well, CrossFit should do this or another organization should do this, which I quite like. I think it's really cool to just be like, we're actually just going to do this ourselves.
Yeah, and I think CrossFit made a good decision about incorporating these guys. I remember when Jeffrey Adler won the games, and it was like crazy to me because Jeffrey Adler is like the poster child of CrossFit in the sense that I think he like volunteered at some point, and then he did his level 1. He followed the Zone diet. He still did CrossFit.com. I mean, if there was ever a person that, like, as soon as he won the games, you're like, holy moly, we should just have a video crew with this guy day in, day out. Because, I mean, just from promoting the methodology that's taught in the CrossFit Level 1 and all these things, he was just this, I mean, golden child for doing that, and he never really got any exposure. So I always thought that was a missed opportunity. And now, obviously with these guys, they're doing a lot better job.
Yeah, definitely. And it's funny because I do, as you were saying that, I do remember sort of when Sam Briggs, who we've mentioned a few times, kind of legend of the sport, and Rich Froning, who you might have heard of, he won a few CrossFit games. When they both won, there was like this big, I can't remember what year exactly what that was, might be 2014, 2013, 2014. There was this big kind of like take them to Reebok HQ, creating all this content, like we're making like all this new apparel, they're testing it out. It was just like this really, like, I felt like after they won it, they seemed to be everywhere. They were taken to all these different sponsor locations and recording with them, and it felt like you would see the winner, like the champions of other sports kind of behave, where they were going, taking around all these different places and met all these people and creating all this content. And yeah, whereas it feels like that doesn't happen quite as much these days, and a bit more, like we talked about, a bit more on the athletes to kind of create their own content.
Yeah, agreed. There's these like big world tours and stuff that doesn't seem to happen in the same way.
Yeah, there was some fun comps as well, which I think we've talked about briefly before, but where they would kind of get different brands would get their athletes, and another brand would get their athletes, and they did kind of like over a few weeks these kind of crazy fun workout competitions. I can't remember the exact name of them now, but they all had fun names as well. So yeah, I hope stuff like that comes back, where we get to see a bit more kind of rogue content being created. And speaking of rogue, I should actually talk about this. That was almost a professional segue. So if you hadn't noticed this week, Rogue announced that they're returning to Scotland for a 3rd year. So yeah, we're going to have the Rogue Invitational 2026 will be in Aberdeen again between October the 23rd and 25th. So I think this is, I mean, as a Brit and someone who hasn't been to the Rogue Invitational yet, I must like prioritize that, try and get there this year. But really exciting news for us to have a major competition coming back to these shores. And what do you make of this? Do you think this is good news for the community at large?
Yeah, I think so. I think the UK has always responded well to it. I think it was interesting. Katie, I think, had said like, kind of 2 years was good for a place or something like that. So they must have really liked the Aberdeen venue. I think vendors are happy, spectators are happy, athletes relatively happy. It's a long travel, but we spoke about this. I think the hotel on site, not having to travel between, makes a huge difference. So, okay, it's maybe harder to get to Aberdeen than Copenhagen or something like that, just because of the airport. But yeah, so I think so. It would be interesting to see, maybe the reasoning they didn't move, because I think there's talk going to mainland Europe. I think there's also I think the Brexit doesn't make things easier in regards to shipping, and the costs add up for those things. So it would have been interesting to see the decision process and why not go to somewhere mainland Europe or take it out. I know Rogue don't have as much presence in Latin America, but I also think, we've spoken about this, there's so much passion for CrossFit in Latin America. That could be like a really interesting one to see.
For sure. And yeah, I think I haven't been. I've kind of been listening to some others talk about the discussion around this, and it did seem that from a containment point of view, the venue's really strong. There's a lot of places to stay nearby, so it kind of feels like a really nice contained competition. So I think that probably does pay into it. But I have to say, I was kind of surprised that they were going back for a third year. I just assumed that they'd want to move it on and have
I also don't think I think Kate had mentioned it. That they were.
Yeah, it's quoted in the article here. 2 years is at a place is good, and operationally it's good. Okay. So yeah, it does seem that they were maybe looking at perhaps they couldn't find anywhere that.
Or maybe the venue, made them an offer they couldn't refuse.
Yeah, I mean that's something that you have to take into consideration.
100%. I mean, maybe even Aberdeen government get behind it. I mean, I can't see. There's flocks of crowds going to Aberdeen in October, November. So, I'm sure they were happy to have a crowd back. I remember the first year. I mean, it's a random story, but we had a videographer, Manu, who you'd recognise from all the vlogs we did. And for us, the travel was a real mission getting to Aberdeen. Just from Mallorca, it's not great flights. So it's like we had either an 8-hour layover in London, or we could fly direct to Manchester and then drive up from Manchester. And it's like, okay, I'll just drive. So we end up doing the 8-hour drive instead of the 8-hour wait to save a bit of time. If we get there and get to a Nando's, which for those, for the people who aren't from the UK, I mean, Nando's has just become such a CrossFit staple food. And I was like, okay, I'll take Manu to a Nando's, give him the true classic British cultural experience, even though it's not a British restaurant. But we get there, all the chicken had gone.
No.
So I mean, because you've got strong men and CrossFitters. And it's I don't know, whatever night we got there, Thursday or Friday, they'd eaten all of Nando's chicken. So
no way. That Nando's must be the most profitable Nando's in October that they have around Great Britain. It is. I mean, Nando's. I'm sure anyone who's probably been to a competition in the UK or traveled to the UK has probably been taken for a cheeky Nando's at some point. It is kind of part of British folklore these days, but that's crazy. I'll run out of chicken, but it makes sense. I mean, it is kind of like the safe eating out food if you're into your fitness and well-being.
Yeah.
So I was just thinking again as you were talking there. I was just thinking, wow, is it really that difficult to get to Aberdeen? And I would have thought, naively would have thought, I wouldn't. Surely it's not too bad to get to, but yeah, that's not ideal having to fly to Manchester and drive up.
No, it's it's like these things. I think event organizers is tricky for CrossFit because we spoke about with Alfonso on the episode, the venues in the big cities just so expensive unless you're you're High Rocks and can afford these places. Like the CrossFit events just don't have the volume in order to make that happen. So going to London XL would be kind of better for Rogue in different ways, more exposed to more people, events are better, but the cost of the venue would just be so much more.
For sure. There's actually I don't know if you saw, but Andrew Hiller had a Brian Friend on his channel to do a long
Yeah,
form
I
interview.
watched the interview. Yeah.
I haven't got through all of it, but as we were just talking then, one of the things that Brian kind of tabled that I thought was an interesting topic and we haven't talked about, but pays into venues and a little bit, I think, is the fact that he was kind of talking about wanting to have better visibility and ways to view some of the like other competitions in the calendar year that aren't like the premium premier comps like
Yeah.
Rogue, where they have their own broadcast. But he was talking about the length of competition of like 12 hours of competition. It runs across 3 days. He's like, there's no other sport that I know that has the volume of coverage that we sort of do. And that's why I think he was saying he thinks it's so hard to like make money and have events. And as we've talked about, you know, being able to make money out of events and how hard they can be to run, I thought it maybe is an interesting thing for us to have a little discussion on.
Yeah, I mean, you know, it's sad to see the amount of events that don't exist anymore because it is hard to see that return. But it's also, you know, I think Hiller made a good point in there that why follow the same World Fitness Project kind of had a unique opportunity to do something a bit different, you know, maybe even a one-day competition, which I don't think the athletes would be adverse to. It'd allow you to do more venues, makes the venue cost cheaper because you have to be there for as long. But yeah, you know, I think that for us as fans of the sport, I do think it's a good concept that, you know, if you could watch a Monday night's 2-hour show of the competition that's fully highlighted that goes down, it's like could be great. The Tour de France does that, you know. Not many. I love the Netflix. You know, I'm one of those people when Drive to Survive came out on Netflix. Like such a great show, and I think it really changed sports documentaries. The current fashion sports documentaries, and they have them on the PGA Tour with tennis, etc. And they also do one on the Tour de France. Since that kind of, I started watching some of the Tour de France. But you know, you're not going to sit through a 4-hour stage of just basically everyone riding together until, you know, later in the stage. But they do these like 15-minute nightly recaps, which are really cool to watch. And I think that there's a model like that for CrossFit that could work, where, you know, if you could keep this kind of similar production where someone goes to a competition or broadcast goes to a competition, and okay, there's a live stream, but and maybe it's not the most interesting thing unless you're super into it. But then getting this like 2-hour package show where it's, you know, you could then go through all the 6 events and the athletes as well and where they're going. And the big thing, and I think this is what makes it hard for the sport, is that there's no like continuous narrative. Each competition is its end goal. And I think you can get really interesting storylines where it's like, you know, okay, this person won the competition, but this person gained enough points in order to do this, and this, et cetera, et cetera. There's a lot more narratives happening within the same leaderboard that can't be expressed when it's just this standalone thing.
Yeah. And do you think that it has to be kind of like just the pros in a comp? Because we've talked about like the Hyrox and the ability to bring kind of pros and amateurs together in one competition, that maybe then the pros get televised and the amateurs can, you know, do workouts when the pros are kind of resting between events, and that way you can still, is that another avenue? Because I think that it's the hard thing, isn't it? You can't just do back to back events within CrossFit. You need some ability to decompress downtime, but you can't just have like one big workout. It needs to have multiple workouts. So it's this kind of, I mean, you could have one big workout, but that's a different thing, and that probably starts being a bit more Hyrox in terms of its output.
It's a great question, because I think it's a very important question of this. You know, ATHEX are obviously trying to do something. Turf Games had a similar concept. And yes, I think that, because if you speak to most like community athletes, you know, if they have to take time off work, if they have to pay a lot of money for the competition, all these factors go into them not necessarily going to compete. Whereas if they can get this like 2 to 3 hour window, and I think this is a big popular thing for Hyrox, is they know, okay, it's just going to be a Saturday, or, you know, I commit to this day. And then if you couple that with being able, because CrossFit is a very participatory sport in the sense that most people who watch CrossFit do CrossFit. And so I think if you can get that package where you've got the elite athletes competing and you get to watch that and you also get to compete yourself, that could be like a real win-win. And I don't think anyone's got that model down yet. And High Rocks are starting to do something really interesting where they now, for the Elite 15, they're starting to standardize the race course. I believe in the 26-27 season, each race course will be fully standardized. And what that means is that, they go in. I mean, honestly, the setup. I went to Hamburg. I think it was Hamburg. Yeah, my flashbacks to like cancelled flights and stuff. But the setup was so cool. It's like a Formula One pit, and they really are thinking about that experience for spectators and all these things. And I think that if you can, standardizing it in certain ways makes it a lot easier to bring this product to different places. If it's always constant, if it's different all the time, it gets a lot harder to be able to execute that on that and take it around away. But yeah, I mean, it's slightly off topic, but yes, I think there's 100% an option to kind of have the elites competing and have a community event at the side, and that's probably the only way that you make these events profitable.
Yeah, I think there's just quite a lot of reasons for it to win in that way. In the sense that if you're paying an entry ticket for a competition, the sweetener of being able to go and watch your favorite athletes compete as well. I mean, I don't. If you've been to FitFest, they didn't do it this year, just gone, but I was at the year before, and you were working out, and then so were the pros. They were doing kind of like an invitational. It was a bit like SoCal, so it wasn't quite as competitive. That was a bit more of an exhibition than a competition, but it was kind of cool. I didn't manage to catch them all because I was competing and I was dying after a couple of workouts, so I didn't get a chance to go watch. But it was cool. I was able to go and watch some of the athletes compete. It was kind of like felt quite like a festival vibe. And I thought it was quite cool. There was still some kinks to work out because I think it was they're only their second year doing it, but I liked it as a proof of concept.
And I think that Wodapalooza is somewhere that's kind of ticking that box where you get like a lot of athletes competing, and a lot of like to go and watch the elites. So I think the big thing is that still a lot of the time it's like, the athletes are competing for multiple days, etc., which makes it harder to get the volume of athletes in. But yeah, the FitFest, I think again it's a package, and they had the Athics was originally there as well, and I think like the guys who started it were behind FitFest as well, which is probably why it went quiet, because they've been so busy with Athics.
Yeah, and something else, as you were mentioning, Wodapalooza, and I don't know if I'm remembering this right, but isn't it normally that you get the individuals for 2 days and then you get the teams for 2 days?
Yeah, exactly.
And I really like that. I mean, obviously, you get some athletes who decide to do both, which is kind of fun, but kind of crazy. But I really like that in the sense that you don't feel like you're having to split your watching. If you are really into it, you get to watch more. I don't know. They're doing. I think they do quite a lot right there, and it'd be nice to see some other comps kind of borrow from them, if possible. Right. Speaking of competitions, we mentioned last week that the Mayhem Classic had sent out invites, and one of the stories this week was that. Oh, hang on, let me pull this up correctly. Here we go. That they had a lot of people decline. So the confirmed athletes from all of the invitations they sent out on the men's side is Jeff Adler, Roman Krennikov, Jason Hopper, Austin Hatfield, and Colton Mertens. And obviously with a few of two of these guys, Roman Krennikov, Austin Hatfield, being Mayhem athletes, it was and being local, it's probably no surprise that they were going to be in there. And then on the women's side, you've got Ariel Owen, Gabby Magala, which is really cool to see Gabby back in competition, Emma Lawson, Emily Rolfe, Lucy Campbell, and Olivia Kerstetter. And it's awesome to see Lucy there, because a lot of the comments I saw about this was that most of the athletes that declined were from outside of the US. So all of the Australian athletes and most of the European athletes declined their invite. But it was very cool to see Lucy going out there. What are your thoughts on the
I think
amount
it's just
of? Sorry, go on.
Yeah, I just think it's people don't want a harder competition. I would say that, as we've talked about before, if you can get your ticket as early on as possible, it's advantageous. But I can see, if you have to travel, etc., then it's like, okay, well, maybe I edge my bets at a later stage of competition. But the fact that so many, you don't, for the guys' side, we talked about those four, you only have one of those four athletes there. Obviously, Ricky and those guys, the Australian guys, aren't there. So, from that top, maybe you've got like half or less of those top 10 tier guys that are really doing well. And on the female side, I think it's going to be an really interesting battle. Obviously, Lucy's going there to get tickets, seeing Gabby back as the first competition. I think it's going to be, it should still be a very exciting competition to watch, but it's going to be interesting to see the spread of athletes over the period of time.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Mayhem social media team decided to post a little jibe saying, "Imagine being too scared to compete at the Classic," which is interesting. We're getting a bit more needle in the CrossFit space than we used to. It used to be kind of all hugs and high fives, and now we get a little bit more needle, I'm noticing, out there in the media space. Do you think that this is kind of like a combination of things? Some people not wanting to travel, some people having a season plan that Mayhem doesn't really fit into timing wise or location wise, or do you think there is something in maybe the programming biases towards a certain thing, so people want to go somewhere else where they think the programming might suit them more?
Yeah, I would say it's probably travel is one of the first things. Like, is it easy one to get to? Then it probably comes down to, okay, what do we do next? Like, in terms of like, do I want to go like timing of the year? And then the next thing comes into the competition that's going to be there. I don't think too many athletes would be, because programming's so varied in CrossFit. Okay, there are certain styles like NorCal, they often like to do different movements. I don't know if you saw like seen on Instagram, like some people doing these advancing double unders. So like doing double unders for distance rather than just for reps. So certain competitions have a reputation of doing things differently, or if you're going to a rogue, that it's going to be heavy. But the semi-final competitions, like the programming tends to be pretty varied, so it's like harder for an athlete to judge based on that history.
Yeah, and I'm not entirely sure of this, but what's the spectators' situation like at Mayhem? Could that be a factor, the fact that there aren't going to be maybe as many people there, or sponsors and stuff? Because we talked a lot about that, athletes considering, where to go, where sponsors might want them to go from a competitive space. Would that play into it?
I don't think so. I mean, maybe there's a bit of pressure, like if you're, if a sponsor sponsoring an event, like we're seeing French Throwdown have like Fit Aid athletes versus GoWOD athletes. So, obviously there's going to be some sponsor pressure for those guys to go to those events. But I don't think the spectator thing, I mean, honestly, the spectator from semi-finals and that level competition in the US has been really low over the last few years. It was when they went back to Carson and you saw the tennis stadium and how empty it was. That was a really sad sight to see.
It was really sad. It was so weird as well, because I'm so used to seeing it packed out. I mean, I've been there as well on Friday Night Lights, packed out. It was immense. So seeing it like where you could have just walked in and sat down and at will and picked your spot, almost like a cinema when, you know, at the end of a run of a movie where it's just no one's there and you get to kind of pick your spot. It kind of felt like that, and I was like, oh, this is bleak.
Yeah, so I think as long as these kind of competitions do a good job on the broadcast, I don't think that would factor into the decision.
Okay, cool. Scrolling down, there's a second round of invites. So athletes have now been invited to as the second round: Noah Olsen, Guimar Harris, Harry Lightfoot, which is awesome to see, another Brit. For my bias towards the Brits, Henrik Kapalainen, so Finnish athlete, Saxon Pancic, Sam Cornier, Travis Mayer, and Nick Matthew. And on the women's side, Manon Anganese, Grace Walton, Hayley Adams, Paige Samenda, Abigail Dommett, Annika Greer, Claudia Gluck, and Fee Sagafi. And I get the sense that we may see again more of the American athletes probably accepting here. Certainly, I'd assume that Guy will probably say yes, being a mayhem athlete, and perhaps some of the other American athletes like Hayley Adams, obviously with links to the
ironically,
to
I think Manon and Claudia accepted.
Oh, really?
Nice. Just like going against the theories, you know?
Yeah, awesome. I mean, I think it's cool as well. Hopefully it gives them an opportunity where they maybe wouldn't have got invited before, and I think that's the nice thing about having this open system now, where people can kind of go where they want, and we're going to get some different athletes in different places, which is great experience for them, but also from a spectator point of view for people who do attend these events, it's kind of going to be cool because they're going to get to see athletes maybe they haven't heard of before or seen in person, but also maybe their favorite athlete ends up being at an event that they didn't think they were going to be. Cool. So that's kind of the first of the semi-finals that we've started to get details about. We'll keep you posted once we get other things. I know Syndicate Crown has sent out their invite, so I imagine we'll start hearing in the next week or so who's accepted and second waves and all that good stuff. But last week we talked about the Open, which is nearly around the month away mark, and we're going to check in on known and knowables link again for the data collection. So it's very cool that this has been put together, so you can come here and check it weekly. It's on Known and Knowables Instagram page if you want to check it out for yourself. And this yellow line here, for those that click the video and watch it back, if you're not, then I will talk you through what we are looking at. But we've got kind of a graph here that's created, and you've got the 2022 games, 2023 games, sorry, 2022 Open, 2023 Open, 2024 Open, 2025 Open, 2026 Open, and it's basically detailing the registration numbers from out. The earliest the Open registration started was 48 days before the Open started, so it tracks from then. And this year, 2026, Open registration started 42 days out from the Open itself, and we covered those last times on last week's show. So I'll just give you the updated number. We're about, I think it's 32 days away now, and the 32 days out number is for this year 51,829. So it's sort of tracking just above the 2022 registration number, which was 43,905 at this. Sorry, yeah, 439,000. No, hang on, 43,905. God, one of those. It's a Monday. It's towards the end of a Monday, so my brain's not.
I was just letting you go with those numbers there.
Yeah. Can you tell I'm dyslexic? So hopefully you caught that. But we're about 10 slightly up. Was it 10,000 up on 2022 at the moment?
Yeah, it's still tracking slightly above, as you said, and the kind of the prediction is maybe it holds that line to move it slightly above the 22 numbers.
Yeah, because 22 numbers around 5 days out has a massive spike.
I don't know where this is the interesting thing. It's hard to know how these spikes and troughs, and obviously I think on obviously when the open workout's announced until the closure of the first workout and people are submitting scores, that's where every number and everyone starts to increase a lot. But we've got another bet on, and I went big on this. I went 300,000. So that yellow line needs to do better.
Yeah. So
if it keeps following 22, I'm not. I'm going to be losing another prediction.
So last week we predicted where the final open sign up number would be, and at the, just for context, I'll share where the previous years finished that we have data from. So 2025 finished at 276,427 open registrations. Then you got 20 did I say it right? Hang on. No, I didn't. 2025, sorry. 2023, 235,179. 2022 was 276,427. 23 is just over 300,000. And 2024 is nearly 3,500. All right. 342,792. And John said he reckons we're going to get to 300,000 this year. And I said it would be 28. Hang on. Bloody hell, I can't talk at all today. 280,000. So somewhere in between. Okay, I kind of hedged between him and where 2022 finished, just above 2022. So at the moment, I'm tracking okay. So unless there's a big spike,
I need jumps. I need a few jumps along the way.
John's plea to, if you are listening to this, please sign up to the Open so that
I can't lose another bet.
Well, it's not a bet. We haven't got anything, and there's nothing wagered on it. It's just podcast pride at this stage. So I'm
just gaming you for when we do start betting. Just keep losing all of these.
Yeah, exactly. Just reeling me in. So on the open side of things, God, let's not have any more numbers today because apparently I can't read numbers. But in terms of the open, what's your feeling around kind of the space at the moment in terms of the open? How do you think people are kind of getting on with it?
I think obviously like the signups are positive compared to last year, still away from the old peaks. I also think it's an interesting, like the High Rocks numbers have really put everything into perspective where you go, okay, High Rocks is going to have 1.2 million live participants at its events over the 25-26 season. And so it just makes these like 300,000 numbers seem a lot smaller. And I think that's a bit of a shame because those numbers used to feel so huge. It's kind of like inflation where you're like your 100,000 euro house was like a huge house, whereas now it only gets you a small flat. And now the inflation of fitness is that these numbers, are not as big relatively in the space, whereas CrossFit really led that space. And so I think the question is not only how you get to 300,000, but how are you getting the open into the millions? How are you getting millions of people to sign up to the open? Because the barrier to entry to it is also a lot less than the High Rocks in the sense that you do it in your own gym. It's less money. And so it's like I think that's actually the bar has been raised well above this 300 to actually go. How do you go into the millions signing up? And I mean, it's what Dom Fool said. I think even his number was like 30 million or something crazy at the start. And how do you get to those kind of? I mean, not even those kind of numbers, but how do you get out of the hundreds of thousands into the millions for the signing up? But relative to last year, it's still trending better, which is obviously a step in the right direction rather than going backwards.
I think you raised such a good point though, because you take High Rocks as an example. Obviously there is an event behind it, so you're not just paying for a workout, you're paying for an experience, but you're paying considerably more to do a High Rocks event than the Open. Open's around 25 pounds, like 20 something dollars. I forget the exact amount, so apologies if I got that slightly wrong, but in and around that ballpark, right? So it's not insignificant. You're paying to do workouts, but it's not a huge fee, especially for many people doing CrossFit, where you pay a decent chunk of money towards a membership, so generally can afford that amount of money. Versus a Hyrox competition, which is over £100, and I'm sure similar price in euros and dollars, but between 100 and 150 for entering one of those. And like you said, 1 million participants in that, where you have to travel. Sometimes people are traveling other countries. Again, you can turn it into a little mini holiday, mini break, or and it's a live experience. So I understand that people kind of want to pay a premium for those these days. But again, that CrossFit, you can film it if you want. So you don't even need to go to a CrossFit affiliate. You can do it outside an affiliate if you're not really into CrossFit, but you want to give it a go. You could go to do a drop into affiliate. If you're a member of a CrossFit gym, it's probably your daily workout or in and there around it. And then if gyms are really into it, then they can turn it into an experience, i.e. like Friday Night Lights, get pizza and beer or whatever they do to make it more of an experience where you want to go and participate. But considering all of that, yeah, the amount of people that do it not only has it slightly declined, but it hasn't grown in a significant time. And we talked about some ideas last week about how potentially they could grow it, but I think it's a really good point that the market's there. CrossFit don't seem to be doing a great job of tapping into it.
Yeah, I think that's the interest. It's shown the size of the market in the sense that there's millions of people competing at functional fitness competitions around the world. So it's like that's kind of become the new metric of success in terms of live participants doing stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you mentioned this on one of the previous pods about the idea of someone running a in-person event where people came and did their open workouts together and had a judge, and it was like someone just if people put this event on, you don't necessarily need it in your gym. Someone could actually make it into an event and have people come, and it's like, come and do the open with us and have a DJ and make it into a proper event. CrossFit could even do that.
Yeah, no, I think a lot of people have said, raised the idea of having kind of these micro events. I mean, even before Hyrox was there we spoke about like the Invitational was a great package. It was like this 2-hour event, something that could go around the world. And yeah, there's obviously, I think this is the thing, there's obviously the market for it and the demand. I mean, people would love to, we spoke about this, how popular participation in fitness events is right now. It's like the new clubbing or the new drinking, the new way to socialize. My guess is it's not going to be that way forever. Maybe the generation that follows this generation, they go back to drinking or go back to whatever it is. And so it's like there's a window of opportunity where you can get more people exposed to fitness, that healthy lifestyle, which hopefully have knock-on effects to kind of keep helping that generation. Because the stories are true for a lot of people. It doesn't matter the sport they came to, but the sports have such a big effect on changing people's lives for the better. They start to feel healthier. They start to get better coping mechanisms for dealing with mental health issues. There's just so many positive aspects to sports, and I think that exposure is really important. So it's like, okay, how do you get that exposure to more people so they can start feeling the benefits of it?
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess, like I said, we've mentioned quite a few of our ideas over previous episodes and stuff, and we'll keep tracking the open and see how it goes. But as fans of CrossFit, it would be nice to see them come out and try something different to hopefully capitalize on it, like you mentioned. And we've both seen just the difference CrossFit can make in people around us lives and being part of the community for such a long time. So hopefully that's something that they can address and figure out in the years to come. So that is the open chat done. Anything else that you wanted to talk about this week, John?
I think it's a good summary. We have our next guest, which I'm quite, it's a subject that It's going to be a bit like I can give people some hints. It's going to be a bit of a nerdy subject. So if you're into your technical details, this is going to be a good one for you.
Yeah, for sure. I think also as a little tease, the person coming on, everyone who's been into a CrossFit gym will have interacted with the subject we're going to talk about.
Whoa.
A fair bit.
Yeah. I also just I experimented, so I've confused myself. I went to look at the live on YouTube just now.
Nice.
And I had the live up, but there was a slight delay, and the live screen obviously looks exactly the same as our screen, so it's a very confusing moment.
Nice. Well, team, yes, we have another guest. We'll be recording that later this week, and it will go out at the same time next week. Okay, so you'll see it on your audio feeds on Tuesday morning, as this, if you're listening to us now, will be out. So Tuesday next week, following week, you'll hear us with our next guest, and we'll share who that is at the time. If you want to come join us live, as I mentioned, 6 p.m. UK time, 7 p.m. Spanish time or European time, we will be on YouTube. Again, the link for that is in the description of where you're listening to your audio now. So please feel free to come join us there, ask us questions. There's also, I think we've mentioned this before, there's also an email address that you can email in. So any questions you have, any topics you'd like us to cover, please do get in touch, or just comment on the live. If you're on the live, even if you're watching it retrospectively, you want to go onto YouTube and you just want to chuck in a little comment of, hey, can you talk about this? It'd be really cool. Or future guests as well, people you'd like to hear us talk to. Please put all of that in either an email to us or on the comment section of wherever you listen to this podcast. That'd be great. And yeah, we'll see you next week. John, anything you want to leave us with before we sign off?
No, I'm excited. I'm excited for our next guest.
Yeah, me too. I think it would be a really cool one. Like I said, I was trying to give you a clue, but without giving it away. But yeah, I think there'll be a lot of people interested in what they have to say. So look forward to that one. Have a great week, everyone. Thank you very much, John, as always, and we'll catch you on the next one, team.